Hello and welcome to WYO Connect, Collaborative Conversations, today featuring Hong Kong. Our colleagues in conversation are Tristan Wallhead, University of Wyoming, Professor of Kinesiology and Health, and Raymond Kim-Wai So, Chinese University of Hong Kong, Professor of Sports Science and Physical Education. They're hosted today by Kehli Hazlett, Director of Programming and Development for the Center for Global Studies at the University of Wyoming.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kehli Hazlett, and I am hosting on the University of Wyoming's campus. Today, we're meeting with Dr. Tristan Wallhead and Dr. Raymond Kim from Hong Kong. Hello, gentlemen. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Very well. Thank you, Kehli. Thank you for inviting us to chat about our collaboration.
Yes, thank you for inviting me to share with our works in the University of Wyoming.
So Tristan, do you want to introduce Raymond to the audience?
Yes, thank you, Kehli. My dear friend and colleague, Dr. Raymond So, Chinese University of Hong Kong. Dr. Sum has been, he's a professor in physical education, teacher education in Hong Kong, and has, we've been collaborating for the last 6 years, and Dr. Sum has been sort of instrumental in trying to develop and transform the pedagogies of physical education in Hong Kong in terms of really embracing this notion of physical literacy, which we'll talk about in a little while. We've worked together, visited numerous times to Hong Kong, and really tried to work with PE teachers within university settings and within school K-12 school settings. And it's my privilege to chat to Raymond today live about this collaboration.
Thank you. Yeah, it's also my great pleasure to share my work with University of Wyoming, and also people who are interested in physical education, physical literacy, and also in the pedagogical model of sport education. And I work with Professor Wallhead for almost 6 years. We have a lot of work regarding grant application, manuscript publication, and also CPD, the continued professional development of PE teachers in Hong Kong. So I'm so proud of Professor Wallhead to be with us in Hong Kong in this 6th year. Thank you.
So just to talk a little bit about Raymond's work, I think in terms of really talking this whole idea of physical literacy. And so both of us are physical education teacher educators. And so we deal predominantly with undergraduates that want to become physical education teachers in K-12 schools. So the idea, the notion of physical literacy is really an outcome of being physically educated. And so when children and youth go through physical education, there's been a contemporary kind of push across the globe that to be physically educated is to be physically literate. And so in other words, what that means is really an idea that experience in physical education being physically literate is really about children experiencing a range of different movement experiences, such that when they finish their K-12 physical education experience, they want to be active for a lifetime, and they embrace the holistic nature of being a mover, a lifelong mover. And so really, to talk about Raymond's work, Raymond really in very much in Asian and particularly Chinese culture, not necessarily has embraced necessarily that as a holistic outcome. And so really in talking, our work has really been, my expertise is really understanding that notion, but also how to present it. What does it look like? How is it operationalized in physical education? And so really talking about Raymond has been trying to be a transformative agent really in trying to move curriculum, and policy in Hong Kong to really value this more holistic outcome of physical education of students being physically literate. And so really our connection is about this whole notion of physical literacy. And so that's really what Raymond's and his graduate students over the last 7 or 8 years has really been working toward in terms of cultural transformation, I think, within the Hong Kong culture.
Yes, that's why in the beginning of the research and also the implication of physical literacy, and date back to 6 years ago, I invite Tristan to become our academic advisor in Hong Kong and share his work related to sport education, physical literacy, pedagogical model to be implemented in the Hong Kong physical education setting in tertiary, secondary level. So with his expertise, we are getting more knowledge on physical literacy and also create a better model to be applied in the university setting and secondary school setting. Say sport education would be very interesting and become a preferred model to encourage students to be physically active and also to be physically literate. So during these 6 years, we have different achievements. Like we have courseware developed, and also we with this collaboration, we also the university also aware of the importance of an active university student during their 4-year study. So we, in our required PE courses, we have already inputted some elements about sport education and also physical literacy. So that's why we want to influence other universities to be able to include such model and such concept like physical literacy, sport education model into their elective physical education course or required physical education course.
Yeah, thanks, Raymond. I think just to talk about Raymond talked about sport education, which is kind of a model that I really came over to the US to study at Ohio State a good number of years ago. And so it's really a student-centered model where kids in physical education take on roles and responsibilities associated with sport, where they teach each other. And we run a unit of instruction really like a sports season. And so my research over the last 15 years has really been looking at that's impact on students' motivation to move, to learn. And I think Raymond, what we did is we created a bridge where Raymond was really interested in the outcome of students being more physically literate. But one of the missing pieces of that is how do we operationalize that? What does it look like in practice? And I think so one example is the model that I've used over the last 20 years, which is this sport education model. And we, as Raymond said, we developed, I came over and talked to many of his university physical activity instructors about this model. And then they've tried to embed it in their programming. And so I think that crossover has really been the notion of physical literacy, but also my knowledge of a model that perhaps can operationalize that in practice. And so that's been the sort of nexus of our collaboration, has been that as the outcome. How do we present physical education to motivate students to be more active and engage more fully such that they become more physically literate? Whether that's university students or whether it's hopefully as we move forward K-12 students too. So that's been the nature of our collaboration. From just as thinking about the value added, I think one I've gained personally from working with Raymond. I value his commitment to our collaboration. I've valued the learning that I've taken from a cultural standpoint in working in Hong Kong and understanding their culture in terms of physical education, but as a wider culture in general, as opposed to a Western culture. And so understanding then how do some of these more Western type of pedagogical models like sport education, how can that fit? What are the policies? What are the practices? And so I've gained a lot. I've learned a lot from working in that context and trying to share what I know, but obviously, hopefully contextualizing it within, making it meaningful within the Hong Kong context, and particularly Chinese University of Hong Kong. And so that's been a great platform. I've also had the opportunity to learn. I've been an external committee member on a couple of Raymond's graduates, and so much of that work has revolved around this whole idea of this collaboration about physical literacy and the use of the sport education model. And so I've learned a lot from those students. Hopefully they've taken some things from what I've added to the manuscripts that we've produced over the years, but also the professional development that I've gone over to Hong Kong to provide. Hopefully those graduate students have also learned something about those models that they didn't know before. So I think it's been a great platform of learning from my perspective about the culture of Hong Kong, but also how blessed I have to interact with those people who work in that context, such as Raymond.
Yes, because of this collaboration during these 6 years, we have been working very closely with the students, with the PE teachers in Hong Kong, and also we try to use this model to transfer our knowledge to the community. And the university is getting aware of this impact to the local communities, because sport education model and physical literacy is rather new to us, to Asia, to the Greater China region. And this piece of work during these years, we serve this as a pioneer study, pioneer research work in our area. So because of the innovativeness and also the successful of this collaboration, the university last year has awarded us a team teaching award. In all over Hong Kong, in 8 universities, our team won this award. So it's very privileged teaching award among the university. So we are very proud to have Tristan to work with us and make impact to the local communities and also the academic arena.
Yeah, and I think just to add that in terms of what does it add to the University of Wyoming, I think we've really grown that connection between Wyoming and the Asian culture and physical education. What are the needs of students in terms of learning to move? What are the needs of students and teachers in terms of teaching physical education effectively? And so what I learn from my work in Hong Kong, it also informs the work that I do here, in the fact that I understand some of the cultural pieces that can inform the way that the model is presented and how it can be improved. And so what I've done is taken the work that I initially did in Hong Kong and I bring it back to my undergraduates here and talk about the model in context. And I think that's really important, and that physical literacy is a global goal. Unless students leave school wanting to move and be physically active, the One Health movement is ended. So I think we have to really embrace these types of model and really embrace this notion of physical literacy. And so the work, hopefully, I also by collaborating with Hong Kong, we've obviously maintained this partnership, and despite political changes over the last several years, the work is still just as important. And so I think it's important to UW as much as it is in terms of perhaps in Hong Kong too.
Yes, this is why we are planning to move ahead and we want more collaboration with different levels. In my future plan, I also plan to invite Professor Wallhead to teach our postgraduate master or serve as a PhD committee member. And also we could have some student exchange at undergraduate level or graduate level. So we have a lot to do. Maybe if the pandemic situation getting stable, we could also have some online face-to-face mixed mode, hybrid mode to have more exchange our ideas at department level or faculty level.
Yes, one future project. Thank you, Raymond. I think those are exciting ideas. I think as we move forward, hopefully outside of the pandemic and move forward even to face-to-face, more collaborative face-to-face opportunities, I hope to revisit those too. I think one plan we have, and I've briefly spoken to Raymond about this, is that we wanted to do a conference in Jackson Hole and for the folks at UW, we wanted to do an international conference hosted in Jackson to invite the scholars and the students from CUHK. We also have a partnership with the Shanghai University of Sport, and to really talk about our work, our collaborative work. And that's planned for summer of 23 in a beautiful location of the ranch up in Jackson Hole. And I think it'd be a great opportunity. Raymond's been to the US, but he's not been to Wyoming yet. And so I think it'd be a terrific opportunity to come to Wyoming. Laramie's beautiful too, particularly as the sun's shining in my face right now. but going into Jackson too, and really providing a platform with an international conference where we can showcase the work that's gone on in Hong Kong and the collaborative nature of that, and also to move forward with future plans so that we can maintain this momentum in terms of making some changes here, but also in Hong Kong. That shared knowledge is how we empower changes in professional practice. And so the international conference, hopefully, Raymond, we can support that and we can get a number of the scholars at CUHK and the students to come over and visit Wyoming and see what the Western culture looks like, particularly in the western part of Wyoming.
Yes, I love to go Wyoming, and I've never been to there, but I heard the beautiful scenery is very attractive to tourists and also academics to visit there. And I think we can also collaborate with some international physiologists association, and they are planning to have a conference in coming October. It's coming October. And University of Wyoming and CUHK can serve as a strategic partner in their conference. And because I'm also a member of the IPRA, we have been discussing about the collaboration at university level. So we have a lot to do to explore our collaboration at different levels.
And so I think just to round up, I think our conversation, thanks Kelly for listening, and Caroline too, but also Raymond, thank you for getting up in the morning. I know you've already exercised this morning. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And so
100
and Raymond's a role model for his students in terms of, well, just his physical activity, but also just his professional disposition and the way that he approaches the work that we do in physical education. Some people marginalize that as a subject in schools, and we take it very seriously. And I think our students then, hopefully that rubs off on them, right, Raymond? And I've been privileged to work with a couple of your graduate students over the years, and I've been impressed with their work ethic and also their nature of collaborative openness and wanting to work and learn from others. And so I've really appreciated that. And I miss my visits to Hong Kong, Raymond, and I really look forward to that next grant being accepted. And I come out again and maybe work with some more K-12 teachers on sport education. I'd love to do that.
Yeah, I also need to thank Professor Wallhead because during every research meeting, Professor Wallhead's names we always mention our collaboration, his kindness, and also his so helpful to our project manuscript. And so that's why the collaboration, I believe, will become closer and closer and deeper and deeper. Thank you.
I want to
Thank you,
thank.
Raymond.
Oh, I wanted to thank both of you for taking the time out to discuss your collaboration with myself and Caroline and our viewers once we have the video up. So thank you so much from the Center of Global Studies.
Thanks.
Thank you.